Hey everyone, welcome to your daily update for SOL and BTC and all the other stuff. Um, so kind of exciting actually. SOL hit that 253 target recently, and that is the last 1 day or greater time frame hold level that exists structurally. So there's actually nothing really to stop the price breaking out now. If it finds some kind of trend support, if it finds some kind of hold level to the downside, yeah, there's really not much to stop it going up now. So resistance pretty much on the charts are now either going to be break levels that get tested, origin levels that get retested, or trends which are moving around all the time. So the downside of all that, though, is it actually makes it pretty hard to trade SOL because you don't really have a clean horizontal target with rules and structure based around it. So yeah, pros and cons, I suppose. We will likely head off into price discovery and all-time highs. So there's your plus. Downside is from where and what little hiccups are going to be in between based on the massive amount of trends that exist. So, but new day, new challenge. Now, as for news, I think so we've pretty much got through most of it, and so all we've really got is some kind of Bank of Japan policy rate that should come out somewhere soon. I love it. They never seem to have a exact time of release on it, but I mean, if it's a real shock to the market and completely outside of what's expected, it could create some kind of volatility. But in the scheme of things, if it just comes out as expected, then it could just be another nothing burger, and price will just keep on going the way it's going. So that's about all we have for news for the rest of the week. Liquidity, it's looking a little, almost weekendish on BTC. I think just the moves that we've had recently have taken a lot of people out and made a lot of people a bit unsure about what comes next. So 1 day is looking pretty even. It could push up into that 118, 119 area. Maybe even go for the 120 hold level. So the 120 daily hold level on BTC is actually kind of the equivalent level of the 253 on SOL. So yeah, one of them's gone there, the other one just hasn't yet. But strength is technically with BTC at the moment, so you'd expect it to take some of that topside liquidity at some point. One of the big differences between SOL and BTC, though, is that they built an absolute ton of resistance structure through the 117 area. So there is lots of things for BTC to reject off before it can get to that daily hold. Whereas SOL, there was just really nothing. It just powered through everything and off it went. So if it was to reject to the downside, there's still pretty much targets down to about 12,800 in play in just that mid time frame, and there are deeper targets than that. But at the end of the day, it's starting to look like it's going to build support and find support at higher levels. Some of the really high time frame stuff is still pointing to places like 95k, etc. But it could take a year for that to play out. Who knows? So I'll try to stick within what we can hopefully trade in the short term, and just keep our minds on what those big levels are, so that we take advantage of them if we ever do find our way there through some kind of shock news event or whatever. So 1 day liquidity on SOL definitely looks like it should take some kind of pullback, to that 130s area. Sorry, 130s. Getting ahead of myself there. 230s area, like 240, 239. There is support around that area which has been forming. There's new support forming today, so I am starting to wonder whether SOL is going to have a pullback, or whether it's just going to find, now that it doesn't really have a lot of resistance, is it just going to find the next available anything and just bounce off it, which is always possible. So now if we look at the 7-day liquidity, pretty even, little bit more to grab to the downside. Um, Targets are pretty much the same. Nothing's really been changing all that much in the last week, apart from a few more shorts have been coming in, which just gives it a little bit more of a reason to go up. But it's starting to sort of even out a little bit on the 7-day, and on the 30-day. Longs are very comfortable, on both, and that's always a worry. Like when you see bull posting and everyone talking about $1,000 SOL, or BTC's going to become the new currency of the world, or whatever it is. But when everyone gets too bullish and longs are too easy, and you look at charts like this and you just think to yourself, well, they might not go and take it all, because there is always some leftover liquidity, but they usually go and take at least some of it. So yeah, I'd be a little bit well, if we do get some Bank of Japan shock today, a 1% increase or something, maybe maybe it goes for a bit of a dive, and areas I'd still be looking at would be that sort of first chunk of liquidity there, down to the 12,400s, 12,800 sort of area on BTC. And same thing on SOL, sort of about 229, 228. There is some trend support in there. The really good horizontal support is sort of 214 or 213 levels. There's some big stuff down there, and then 190, 189, etc. is huge. So, but even if they just went and took that first part of it, it's probably a good spot to look at building low risk positions if they did that. And okay, let's have a look at these charts. So so what you saw yesterday, like if you have a look at yesterday's video, and just have a look at some of the charts and what they were like, a couple of hours before close, and then what happened in that last little part, which just went nuts. And that's kind of why it's pretty hard to make any decisions before the candles actually close, because they can just turn the tap on with sell pressure, bring something like this down underneath the trends, and then dump it. Or they could close here, which is effectively kind of just a nothing, because it's not over the exterior trend, it's not over the interior. You can't really move. It is breaking the interior, but you can't really move the interior post or above the exterior, so it doesn't really change much. So it can all change in 1 hour and 43 minutes, but as it currently stands, it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't promote a higher price, and it doesn't promote a loss. It's just kind of there. And it may be a case of that's what Friday's going to be until the weekend. So looking just at the slightly bigger picture, though, we're pushing up above the range trend. And we've got 3 days to go on the weekly, so this could get real bullish real fast. Like, it could close above the top of this, and that would mean it doesn't really have to do any retraces, and it could just pump. And all of that would be pushing through the monthly resistance if it did that. And it can do that because we've still got 10 days plus to go on the monthly, so nothing stops the monthly going for a sweep, which is the result of the weekly having a pump up to the exterior trend. So and the other option, of course, is that in 3 days this could be down below this line, reject off the back of it, and dump. And that would also be perfectly adequate price action behavior, because it would mean it's retesting these levels down the bottom here. And if it was to close as sort of like a real tight doji, but still in accumulation, then it's a hard close and flip to support of these bottom levels, rejection off the backside of the trend, and then a dump down to retest the support. And it's all just kind of normal stuff, but you just don't know what it's going to do when you're 3 days out, and the markets are kind of really undecided at the moment, with people opening just as many shorts as they are longs. So, and then look at the monthly. I said this in the Discord yesterday, we're pushing back up into this resistance. So we've done that, we've hit the monthly resistance, we're pulling back from it again now. This has not gone to its targets, it's still kind of just hovering up in here, and and it's still got a lot of time to go, on the candle. It hasn't hit the monthly break level. It could, by the end of the month, be up and over top of this trend, and that's the only time it matters. It doesn't matter what it does if it goes up there for 3 days, 5 days, doesn't really matter. But if it goes up there on monthly close and opens on the other side, then it's free to push up to the break level and hit the break level or retest the range trend that's sitting up here at about 2.4. So what's a little bit abnormal about this is that there's not really any reason for this not to reject. Typically, there'd be some kind of trend or some kind of other level that just gets in the way of it and stops the whole candle from pushing back. In this case, there isn't, and because of that, it seems a little bit more like a trap for bulls, like just to get everybody confident in their longs and get everybody basically complacent, I suppose, and then close under that trend and play out. So this could still be a real big trap that plays out over the next 12 days, anywhere in the next 12 days. You're pushing into resistance, so it's always a bit dangerous. So if we have a look at the safety assets, so we created a trend, we've bounced off it, we've dived it, we've hit the hold. So all this is stuff we spoke about yesterday. So where it closes today is quite a big thing. If it even where it is now, it pretty much is able to open the next candle, bounce off the trend, and head up to these holds. That's going to be a pullback, in alts. Although we say pullback in alts, and it seems to be a bit of a mixed bag at the moment because you've got things like SOE and SOL, which are showing some really good strength, and then you've just got a whole bunch of random alts that are not showing great strength. So it's a real, you'd almost say it's a limited bull run at the moment, like or a limited alt season, where some tokens are performing really, really well and others are just sitting there doing nothing. Not quite like what it was in the last one. So yeah, this could pull down before the end of the day. If it pulls down, it doesn't really mean too much other than it's opening on the other side of the interior trend, and it's already hit the hold level, so it could become bullish if it does that, because it could reject off the back side of the trend and push down. There is a couple other little things I've just put on this chart, like we have got weekly range trends untested down here in these sort of in the 62 area, and we've got weekly support trends coming through here in the 63s. So there is a lot of things down here to send this back up, and we've got some of those areas have retests pending. So we've got 66.89, we've got 66.18. So this is the weekly stuff, because we're breaking down in the dailies, but we're actually heading towards the weekly supports. So it's what happens down here and where this price closes in the next 3 days is pretty crucial. And what we want to do is we want to close under the weeklies. If we close under the weeklies, then we can really start to dump. And dumping on this means alts fly. But as it currently stands, it's actually looking like it might close up, push up, and if it stays up, then that means we stay up above the weeklies, and then we can bounce the weeklies, and that means we're in for a pretty decent dump across alts, particularly weak alts. Okay, totals, breaking an interior trend, but still not breaking the exterior, so doesn't mean too much. It would have to have a huge retrace before the end of the day to make any difference on this. It will potentially, if it doesn't get over what would that be, about 371 would be a pretty good level. If it was to close over 371, then at least it's still kind of holding this, or it's on top of the support. Closing sort of where it is now, below that, the next candle is going to be under it, so that does mean you might have a secondary reason to reject. It gets really bullish if it closes over 371.99 because then we'd be closing over the break level. There is sort of a more of a local break level in here, which is about 370. Let's see, 371.07. It would be somewhat frustrating and annoying if it closed between those two levels, because that's how you park the price and you just pause it. You just sit between, something that wants to become support and something that's still trying to be resistance, and then you just end up with a real boring sideways day. So looking at the non-DXY valued, so this is changing a bit. We're going to kind of shift trend to top side, and there's a big wick on that. So if we do that, we could have another pump up. That triggered my alert. We could have another pump up, and then we could have a dump back. So we're not hard closing the break level at 370. What is that one at? Yeah, we're not hard closing the break level at 379, but we are above it. And we have already hard closed the break level at 376. So that was done there, and then it swept the liquidity, found the trend, and then came back up. So really this is definitely looking like it wants to move up, but it is now going to have this trend resistance. And if it manages to push through that, we've got an untested range trend over here, which is just sitting there waiting to reject at about 3.9. So that's next, and heck, if we actually manage to close a day above 3.94, then yeah, we're out. We're definitely out of that that entire area. If we get above that, that'll get fun. Then we've basically got to start looking for untested trend rejections and various other bits and pieces, and taking guesses at what the next all-time high is going to be. So if they want to get bearish, really all they have to do is pull it back below 3.79 before the end of the day, and then it would be below the local daily break level. It could still move the trend to the top side. That's actually doing that is actually bearish, really, because if you're going to move the trend to the top side, you want there to be no wick on the top of the candle. You just want to be able to go above it. Yeah, and if they really turn the sell pressure tap on, and I should stop moving that line. I just set my alerts off again. If they really want to, turn the sell pressure tap on, they could bring it down and close under this trend. But all that would really do is create a bit of a pause in this tight little area here, which is really where you don't want to be. You don't want to be sitting there stuck in a tiny little range. It's much better where it is now. It's got room to play. Looking at the weekly, yeah, so weekly's up above trend, up above weekly break. 3 days to go. They could pull it back down. They could make this quite bearish if they wanted to, because it hasn't really hard closed these levels, and it started from the wrong side of the trend. So they could make this really bearish if they wanted to, or they could close up here and then just bounce off the top of that and go full bull, and target this upper trend here at 4.6, which is I think the next step in the ladder. As you can see, that top one's a doozy, all the way up to the sixes, but we'll see. Some pretty old trends. So worry about that more on weekly close. So let's have a look at BTC. So BTC is going to shift its daily interior, but it may close above the range trend. So yeah, they're going to have to make a choice here before the end of the day. So we've got the range trend coming through here. If it closes over 116.9, then it's going to be above the range trend. Now that range trend is going to want to target that 120 hold. The trend moving, the main trend moving to the top side, and the wick on the candle is, of course, going to be the thing that's going to try and stop it. So once this closes, if it closes like this, it basically kicks off a chain of events where price wants to go from 116, 117 up to 120. But then other things get in its way, and that's what causes ranging and retracements. So it looks like it's going to build a hold level here if it closes like this at 116.728, and it will be a hard close of the 116.226 break level. So yeah, this is getting bullish. It will be above the 116.984 break level, but its rejection is off the the 117,500. So there's a lot of scope for this to sort of push up off that trend to try and hit that level up there at 120. But although they're not on the screen here, there are a bunch of levels. There's some ones that we really suspiciously didn't touch, like I think they're on the 15-day and things like that. Let me just find that for you on my sheet on another screen. Yeah, 14-day and 15-day hold resistance levels, which are actually sitting at 117,899.8, and the price went to 117,855.5. Now I know that sounds like splitting hairs, but if you're heading into a weekend and you got Department of Bank of Japan possible shock news, and you close above a range trend on the daily, and then it takes off and everyone starts chasing it because they go, oh, next leg up, and sitting just above the top of this candle is resistance. So it's potentially a bit of a trap, because it's not a hard close range. So it can bounce off it, but if it hits something bigger, it can also come back through it. So this it's a bit of a high risk hold level, taking a trade on this 116 candle, assuming it does still close up like that. But it, in theory, is going to go one way then the other. Try to set my alert off again. So it may bounce up to come down first, bounce up to trend, then reject. It could push through trend, hit one of those higher time frame levels. The 117 levels are not all done yet, so there's still resistance flowing through those before we hit the 119s, and they've built some staggered stuff in the 119s, like 119.239, 119.414, and then we get to this 120 level. So there's a bunch of things just in this gap that are there to guard that. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. It'll be very, very efficient if they just push through all that, have one rejection, and then we fly, after that rejection. But if they want to keep BTC moving sideways, they can just go through each one of those at a time and make it really, really slow. So, okay, that's what we get from the daily. Let's have a look at our 3-day close. So 3-day close is also going to shift a interior trend. It's going to introduce more support, so we get that level there in that 116s. So we're starting to get a bit of confluence with that sort of 115.978, 116 area. This has got a target up here at 119.239, which is just one of those levels we mentioned just before on the day. Well, we're looking at the daily, and we've got origin levels and such up around the 120s, the 129.45, levels. So there's still a bunch of reason for this to push up if it closes positively like this. It's still holding trends, but it does have some levels for rejection just up here. So overall, looking bullish. It's definitely, strength has shifted back into BTC, that's for sure. And our trend moves to the top side like that. So if they want this to be a bit of a bearish close, they could pull it back to maybe that 116,800-ish price level, somewhere around there, and then reject off the backside of the trend and then come down here to try to break the hold and kick off the process of more or less traveling back down to these lower levels. And if it does that, then it'll come back down and retest something like the bottom of the range here, which could happen because this 3-day candle is the first 3-day hard close back up inside the 3-day range, so it could simply want to create a point of rejection and a point of failure to then come back down and test the bottom here. So all right, 9 days moving trend, very bullish. This is actually really bullish because not only is it moving trend, but it's opening, as long as it doesn't pull back anymore, it's opening the new candle on the top side of the trend. So yeah, this is a time frame that could quite literally push up to that 124 area. If it was to dive the trend, because it's not a hard close trend, then we have got a support trend coming through around the 114s, and then the next one down there at about the 111, 112. So all of these have really confluent sort of levels. It's just waiting for it to either, it's really either just got to make a decision where it just lets the longs continue the ride, which is not typically the way markets work, or it gets them lulled into a sense of security and then goes, oh no, I'm going to go retest that stuff, and then just dumps. So it could be some shock news or whatever, but this will bring in another break level down here at 107, so that's good. We've had this positive accumulation range form over the last 18 days, and we're not hitting break levels to the downside. We have got a origin level through there at about 120.8, so there's a lot of confluence around the 120 area being an area of rejection for various reasons, but also if it can close over it, it becomes a breakout level. So this is, what this illustrates here is that if we get one 9-day close over 120.826, then you can expect it to push up. And then this is probably the most bullish time frame I can see today. So this is potentially a hard close of a 29-day trend from 2021. So yeah, if this hard closes, it does move the trend to the top side, and that gives us, based on the angle, it does give us an area where we could reject. So funnily enough, it's sort of around that 118, 119 sort of area, and then support would sort of kick in from the 114s or lower, which would be a retest of the broken trend. And we, in the most bearish outcome to this structure is that it is the first hard close of the range down here at about 106. So it's possible. It's used the hold level at 108, so that was a long. You can long that hold level. It's going to hard close the trend. It could dive it for liquidity to do a retest, and that would give you that 106 area. But it could also just push up through and then continue the process. The highest that this would sort of aim at is probably about that 126 area. So it's very bullish in there. And if it regains this support trend, then the next trend's up here is 200. So it's pretty bullish. It's higher than what I would expect this thing to go, but in this cycle. But I guess the possibilities there. Okay, and the 87-day close today. That'll move the trend to the top side, and that gives you that same sort of range really. It's that 127, 128 rejection to the top side and retest in the 112s. So it's just going to open in the middle. This will be a nice time frame to sort of illustrate the whole range that seems to be in play at the moment. Basically 112, 113 area to the downside through to about that 127-ish to the upside. So if it dips, buy. If it pumps, start taking some profits. All right. Let's have a look at SOL. Okay, so SOL, it's going to move the daily trend today, and it hasn't retested the broken trend really. So there's still, so we've run out of things. Where our 253 hold level here has been hit, it's rejected. The minimum obligation of this hold level was to reject down to 248. There was nothing in between, so there was no trends. There was nothing to stop it rejecting to 248, so it's done that. And now we are going to get some changes of structure. So our trend is going to move to the top side. So that's our first thing that'll change, assuming this closes up. The whole story changes a bit if they push it down below 244 by the end of the day, but or 244.7. But as it stands, trend will move to the top side. We're still holding the support trend. We're breaking out of, not really. It's probably not going to get a retest on that, to be honest. The interior, I mean, we are breaking out of the interior and moving the exterior, but at the same time, we may get a retest of that, so I might just leave that line on the chart. But yeah, we'd have to be diving through all the other trends to get there. So it's looking pretty bullish. It's got back into the old original range, which is this range from down here at the start of August. So if it can hold that, then the most bullish retrace is probably only going to be into that sort of 240s, 244, 43. There's some monthly levels around 243, 242, 241. That would be the really, really bullish, retrace, and then it would just keep pumping from there. Historically, we've got a few things up inside here that we've got sort of a origin rejection level around the 260s. That could cause a problem, but we're running out of things to stop the price, put it that way. It's looking like it's going to want to go up. Now, the most bearish outcome of this is that our first available daily frontside hold is down here at 203. So if we do lose the daily uptrend at some point, and it's not really capable of doing that today, but it could do it tomorrow. So if we do lose the daily uptrend, then the next thing it's going to do is it will target the break level at 231. And if it breaks the break level and rejects off the backside of the break level, then it's going to start coming down here to do retests of these lower break levels, sort of between the 220s, 217s, 213s. Now, these are all hard close levels that haven't been retested, so there is reason to come back. And then the actual hold level on the daily, if it pushes through all of this and we get a sustained sort of downwards trend, the hold level is down here at about 203. So it's not totally out of the woods. It just needs to keep holding trend, and if it keeps holding trend, it will not stop going up. It will just keep on going up. So that's looking pretty bullish. Okay, and just to give you an idea of some of the stuff that's happening at the moment on the higher time frames, this is the 2-day. So the 2-day has support here at 242. It's got a trend that it's pushed up and through, and this will be a close that we look at tomorrow, but it never actually hit the hold level and it's pushing through the trend. So this is the kind of stuff that just makes you look twice at it. I've stared at this for a lot this morning, just wondering whether or not we're going to get a weekend dump, and the weekend dump could start somewhere in the next 24 hours, really. It'd just be a pullback of this candle underneath the trend to come back down to the hold. So that could be the kind of thing that kicks it off. And then if it closes under the trend and then loses the uptrend, it could reject down, and then we start to look at these retests back down here. All the levels are pretty much confluent levels on the daily, but yeah, this is a little bit funny the way it's pushed up through there, and it's got a day to go. Okay, and then the 3-day. So the 3-day is not going to move the trend today. It's also pushing up through the trend, and it's got a new hold level for support that's going to form here at 242. So we could get a pushback to that, and they would really have to bring the price down below 243 to get this underneath there, or 242 not to make the hold level. If we see that in the next hour and 15 minutes, then that is really bearish, because it shows intention if they bring the price down like that and then don't create the support and then come back under the resistance, particularly in this case, because it would give it the ability just to reject the resistance and start to travel down. So yeah, I guess we'll see what happens in the next hour and 15 minutes. We might get the reverse of yesterday, where yesterday they pumped it big time towards the end of the day. Maybe we get a dump towards the end of the day in the last 15 minutes or whatever. We'll see. So the bullish outcome here is that we bounce, we just open here. We don't move the trend. We bounce off the top of the crossover of the support trend and the downtrend. And the hold. I mean, there's that little area there around 242. If it closes like this, we'll have a hold level and two trends it could bounce off. And then historically, if we scroll over to the side here, we've got the 3-day hold, which we've already hit. It's already in some form of rejection. This actually has a target pretty much confluent with what is this, 236. So I don't know if it's going to be able to get to that because it's up above all of this. So yeah, this thing's pushing down, but maybe it pushes down to these trends, rejects, and then heads up here. This is also a 1 candle range, so it's probably not. It's not really a 3-day. It's just something else inside there. It's a 1.5 day or something you can't really chart. Okay. So what would this do? Well, it would aim for 260. That's pretty much what it's going to try and do if it closes up over here and hits the backside of that. Risky trade, being it's a front side. It's developing this beautiful down backside trade down here. So this is just more confluence if it drops down to this 210 level. So if we do get this 210 level, then you've got yourself a really low risk fib trade that will come out of that. So that'd be a nice one to take with decent size. 9-day. This is really bullish. So they could flip this bearish pretty quickly though. So where we are, we're basically above break levels. We're above origin levels. It's a crazy place to close. This 241 level here, which is an origin level from the previous all-time high. I mean, really, that can just bounce straight off that and head to. If it closes above these trends and then dives to that origin, yeah, it's not much to stop that. It's going to try and work its way back to 295. So it's not moving any trends today. We've got this range trend down here for support around 229. So 228, 229. It could come down to 222. You've got that confluent level there, 210, which would just be a hard close level. So, and it would have 9 days. So, closing up here it could dive through all of this to do these retests, give people the opportunity to get an amazing long in place, and then power all the way up here to 295. So this is look at lovely. Look at this. What else we got? We've got a range trend down here at 206. It could come retest that. Yeah, so it's because we've sort of run out of these topside hold levels for rejections, we don't really know what's going to push things down, but certainly if we see any of these levels get approached, they are good risk reward long term. What this is saying is that this is not the top. It's not the top. We might get a pullback, but it's not the top. So if they want to make this bearish, what are they going to do? Well, it's quite easy. They're going to push it down. If they were to bring this down and close under 244, we would have to be 245.3-ish. If they drove it down and closed under there for the day, yes, we could definitely reject off the backside of that trend, and then that would start that pullback. But that's always as we get towards daily close, they're always just right there on the line. A dollar up, a dollar down makes a big difference. This is the one I'm watching from yesterday, which is the 10-day close, and this is, I didn't actually notice this yesterday, but there's an untested range trend that travels on the 10-day up to about 550-ish, somewhere around there at the moment. We're rejecting off the trend, which we should be, and it should try to target the trend or the hold, which are going to be these sort of levels down here between about 220. Depends how long it takes to get there, but they're going to be between sort of about 220 and 214. If this actually does play out and it hits that hold level, then hold levels are going to target trends. So that basically targets you back up here to this topside trend at about 265. And if it gets over that topside trend, then it targets the range trend, which is just will make all those influencers smile. But it kind of makes sense because everyone says, sold to 1,000. So we could believe sold to 500 maybe based on this. So this is possible as a bit of a channel trade, big one. Don't know how long that would play out. It just seems to not quite fit in with cycle theory, but then there's also a lot of people saying cycle theory is over, so who knows. As far as key levels, really just watching this to see if we get a retrace. If we get a retrace and a reaction off the 220 trend, I will be putting a good long on that, and then further down be adding down here at these 214 levels if we do get that. Anything below that really is just an add, and then we target back up to the trends, e.g. where it is now, and then the 265, and then heck, maybe we do hold on to it to 500 if it goes that high. So the 29-day close today. Well, it's going to shift the trend to the top side. This is the kind of thing that is stopping it from retracing at the moment, and so it gets bearish if they close under 244.567, but if they close, what a number, but if they close above that, then it creates basically a range between the break level and the trend. And so these are those kind of trades where the probabilities of what happens is not as good as it is when you're just dealing with hold levels. So hold levels go to trends, they just do that. Whereas when you're dealing with break levels, they could close over the top of the break level and then they could lose it, and that's just what happens sometimes. Or they can close over the top of it and use it, and then use it to push up and break through the trend. So it's a bit uncertain as to whether they dive down. Also, another common one is they'll close above a break level and then they'll sweep the prior range. So this is sort of implying we are going to leave this whole price area here, which existed between 113 and 244. So this is saying we're going to leave it. But what they do sometimes before they leave a range is they try to take out as many people who have trades and longs within that range, so that creates a sweep. But it's not exactly like it's a sweep that has to go back to any of these trends or anything that you see on this chart. So it's it could just do a bit of a dive, and it's usually more based on time, because if you've got 29 days to play with, the sweep really wants to go down and get back up above the break level in 29 days, or even be up above the trend in 29 days, so that it can take off. So it's really just time based, and it comes down to, you know, how bullish do they want to be. Close here, have a bit of a fight between the trend and the break, or close here, dive it, come back up, or pull down before the end of the day and get under that 244.567 in the next hour and then dump. So if it does dump or reject that trend from the underside of that break level, based on the higher time frame holds and trends, it really is looking to target the lower 200s. So that's yeah, one to keep a bit of an eye out for, really. There's also a range trend running through there, so we're also, you know, breaking out of a range trend. So I mean, long term bullish. This is super bullish long term, breaking out of a high time frame range trend. Yeah, sure, we're shifting some resistance, but we might also create some support that is, you know, just within $8 of that. So yeah, long term very bullish. Okay, and that's exactly what happened here. So just to illustrate what I just said, happening on the 29-day, this is the 65-day close that happened yesterday. It created a close just above the break level there at 243, and the trend was really close, and it just bounced off the 243, and it's trying to break the trend. So, you know, this time frame is trying to move up here to 264 after that close yesterday. So that's what that's all about. And we've got the 87-day. So this has got a bit of a wider range. We're actually on the wrong side of the support just on this one. So this is that 259.881 or that 260 area that is sort of popping up, that might be a bit of a sticky area. So we could open this, push up a bit, and then come back down to the break. And the break level here is about 228. And the range trend on this is about 213, 214. So if you're ever wondering how you confuse someone, you have one chart that basically says we're going to go bust 295, and then you go to another one that says no, we're going to reject down to 214. So that's kind of what's happening at the moment, and both of these things are probably going to play out. It's just which one first. Down is always better first, because if you don't go down, you eventually do have to go down, and that's how blow-off tops come about. So far, the way the price is moving on SOL, this is definitely one of the most sustainable moves we've had. So we're going to get a topside trend, I think. Yeah, no. So actually, sorry guys and girls, just double check that. Where is that trend? Oh yeah, it is at the top. So yeah, so we are going to get something, are we? No, we're not even going to move our interior. Maybe we are. It's one of the issues with timeframes like 87-day is that this candle here opened on the 14th of December and closed on the 1st of January. So it's not actually a candle. Shouldn't be on the screen, but it's just how it works. So so if you sort of shift all of this to the left, the wick of this genuine 87-day accumulation candle would sort of be in this line, and this would kind of be your interior trend running down here as you see it on the screen, and therefore this is kind of a break of trend, and that would move to the top. like that. So it's get a bit funky sometimes. So that could give another point of rejection. But yeah, ultimately it's going to find support if it does reject, so not too much to worry about. And yeah, that's just our 130 from the other day, so there's nothing. Okay, so real quick look at the others. SUI has just taken off, so anyone who kept their SUI trade open, it's still really just, this is just a monthly move, found support. It's just heading towards the break level really, 4.3, and I'll look to open a trade on this again maybe next month, depending on whether it retests the trend or the hold level, and how it's interacted with the break level. I mean, if it wants to get really bullish, it's going to just go up above that break level and open on the top side of it and then push up to the trend, so that could be another trade to take, but don't really want to be taking daily trades on that. NA, so it's, the hold level hasn't got it back up above the trend, so this is just maybe trying to come back down to that 54.28 target, which has always been the target of the short. So yeah, I'm interested in taking a long on this up to $1 if it comes back and completes that short, but if it doesn't come back and complete that short, I don't really want to be doing much with that. And World Liberty Finance, cool. So this created our range. It has not created a hold level, so we've got a range support. We've got nothing to stop it bouncing off it, and I will just put an alert on this. So if this comes down and retests this spot in here, then we could look at taking a long back up to the break level, or up to the trend up here. So what else we got going on? We're moving this to here. Yeah, so this is getting there's a lot of confluence of new support in this area. So that 28.7. So what would be really good is some kind of dip down into here, and then just a pump out of there back up to the break level, and then if it closes above the break level, then a push up to retest the backside of that range, which is one of those kind of inevitable things. Is if it keeps holding trend, it will retest the backside of a range, and the backside of a range's job is to reject it, break the trend, and move the trend, and then the trend goes to the hold, and then the hold's job is to break it down and create the downtrend. So those are the two key daily levels up there, and this is the breakout level here at 2332. So it's pretty much looks like it's working for a breakout, and the lowest risk reward area, also the best risk reward area, would be to catch it when it retests the bottom of this range, if it does, because then you're in before the break level, and if the break level ends up rejecting it, you're in with plenty of buffer for your stop loss, or to take some profit and move on. So yeah, so this is probably just worth putting. It's going to go one way first, so it'd be worth putting a alert just up here on the 2332, and also down here on the range trend, which is around the 206 something at the moment. And see what's Cook up to. Nothing really significant. Yeah, I'm in this from like 6 cents, so don't care. It can just do what it wants. Hype, still looking very bullish. So not interested in doing anything with this at this stage, but it might, it's either going to break this trend and relocate it or not. I mean, it has to do a pretty decent sizable dump in the next 3 days for it not to break it, but am interested in it once it's moved the trend, because if it wants to be a normal little token, it's going to move the trend either with or without a wick, and then it's going to reject or pump. So more interested in having a trade on this after it actually moves the weekly and how it reacts with the weekly. And hopefully it plays a normal game, which is moves the trend, rejects the trend, comes back to retest the levels down here, 51, 49, 46, 42, and then get along on it from there, and watch it head back up to try and break the trend. So nothing else really to do on that. And so, yeah, not much. This is probably going to be next month's trade as well for me, but it's still doing exactly what we want it to do. It's over the top side of the monthly trend, and it's still got the monthly hold. So, you know, a pullback down into the support trend in confluence with the hold and confluence with a retest of the backside of the trend, and then a pump. You know, and this should really be able to target this level all the way up here, unless there is a range trend in there. So that would sort of be first TP up around 45 cents. So that's basically taking this hold level to this range trend. Take a TP there. If it gets over the top of the range trend, it'll target the break and take your second TP up there at 76. So that's more for next month. Okay, that's us. So hopefully the audio came out all right in that, because I just realized I was facing away from the mic. We'll see. Like, subscribe, and you know, come join the Discord if you want to hang out with a bunch of people who are, you know, doing this kind of stuff all day long. And we'll catch you again next time.